Well, welcome to the family, the family hour of the Yawa blog. I'm your host, Craig Wynn. Up there in my swimming pool, we have Kevin. Beneath him is Captain Kirk. Always nice to see you fellas.
How
And
you
there's
doing?
the lovely Miss Leia. And
Leia.
Wookie, it looks like has a bow tie on. So
Wow.
Wookie is styling. Yeah, Wookie is styling for the show. Yeah, I do have a new shirt, so I'm doing the best I can, but I don't have the bow tie, but I don't have a personal dresser either. So yeah, there you go. Just do the best we can. If we get JB later in the show, we will bring him to you as well. We did get a little early start this evening. We are going to resume our series that we have labeled the Antichrist. Of course, there is no Christ, so there can't be officially an Antichrist. But we did a month or so ago identify the person that is known to or searched for by Christians as the Antichrist. They've been looking for that fellow for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of books written about it.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I had
sure.
no interest in him. I didn't really care. I
Nor I.
knew it was the Toraless one, and that when it was time for us to confront him and deal with him, we would. But that there was really no reason to try to identify him. So I didn't. We actually stumbled into this because I wanted to go back now with all we have learned about what's going to transpire on Teruah with both the Lakat gleaning and the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, and how that prepares the adulterous woman of Israel for her betrothal to her returning king, who is Dode on Kippurim, and how that then leads us into a 1,000-year celebration of Sukkah. Thereafter, I wanted to make certain that we had our timing down, at least to the degree we could. And it was just by studying the details there that we were confronted with an absolute affirmation of who this character was. And it turned out to be it's Donald Trump, who is currently demon-possessed and is the Toraless one, the person the Christians consider to be the Antichrist. There we have JB, and it looks like you're in the mountains. Is that the view from your place, or do you just like the view?
Yeah, no, I wish this was the view. This was from when we stayed in Tennessee a few years back.
Okay, well, you guys are very nifty on the views. I like it. All I've got here is a library, on menorah and some books, but
That
very,
trumps
very well.
everything else.
Yeah, well, very well. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into those books, so I'm quite.
I think so. You win.
I'm quite pleased. Quite pleased with them, the effort that we have put into them, and our identification of Trump as the Antichrist. Again, it was not by design that we would identify him as such. It just became obvious as we read through Daniel.
Yeah.
We're told that this person will be.
The measurement.
Imposing the two-state solution on Israel at this time. We are told both in Daniel and in Isaiah that Israel will endure a state of terror that is carved out of her heart in conjunction with the Shabuah harvest. And that Shabuah harvest would begin the period known as the time of Israel's troubles. And therefore, we're also told in Isaiah 18 that the great betrayer of Israel is a very arrogant, meddling individual who does not have his wits about him. And there are some 72 adjectives that are used to describe the perpetrator of the two-state solution. And it's none other than Donald Trump in the United States. So we found that, and then in Daniel, we have a description of him, including his goatish comb-over hair, and the fact that by this time, he is likely to be wheelchair-ridden. It speaks of his fancy wheels is part of the description that we're given of him. In fact, at this point, when we consider how bad a shape he's in, I mean, he has full-on dementia at this point. He is
also kidney failure.
Yeah, complete confabulator. There is no correlation between what he believes, what he says, and reality. You look at the back of his hands, which are exposed, and his ankles, which sometimes are exposed, and he has serious problems. I mean, it's the whole back of his hands. It's just black. They're putting makeup on it to try to cover it. They've been putting makeup on his face for a very long time to try to cover issues there. So the man has serious health issues, and the miracle for Hasatan is going to be to keep his boy alive for the next 8 years. So it's the only part of our identification that seems a little bit suspect is, oh my God, even in a wheelchair. How is this nearly 80-year-old man who clearly has dementia now, how is he going to survive to that point? But nonetheless, the description of him is irrefutable, because the timing again is Shabbat. The United States is the great betrayer, and it's an arrogant meddler from the United States that does this, which leaves us with no other choice but Donald Trump. And I've been saying that really since November of last year.
Yeah.
But then it goes one step further, which is that the book of Ezekiel is Satan bragging to us about what he's going to achieve. And the end of that book, it was just so peculiar. And I never dawned on me why it was so peculiar that he shifted away from using Ezekiel as his muse. And so this book that has two horrid rape scenes. So first of all, I'm wondering, why in the world would he present something that is so sexually perverted? This is Satan. Satan doesn't have the wherewithal to rape anybody. He's a spirit. So that means that he's projecting himself to a rapist, because these rape scenes are grotesque. And now we have a president of the United States who is a rapist. And then you're dealing with the fact that it was 25 ways to kill a Jew. And here you have the president of the United States accepting $16.5 billion in bribes from Muslims. And he is turned from someone who spoke against Islam to somebody now as Trump 47 who's in bed with Muslims.
100% bought and sold.
Oh, bought and sold. And then the end of the book is just so difficult to process. And now it's understandable. The Lord, who is Satan, speaks of this copper-colored individual, a bronzy-colored, copper-colored individual, like Orange Man, who is a real estate developer who partners with him in measuring up not only the Temple Mount, not only Jerusalem, but almost all of what was Judea, to build this monstrosity, this gaudy, horrible monstrosity, just in the Trump style, with naming rights over the Temple Mount and all of Jerusalem. And this guy's a real estate developer, and he's copper colored. Okay. How many clues? And he's a rapist.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought about really intensely was all the measuring. And then I thought about it, what's the first thing a builder does? Sends out surveyors.
Anyway, that's the story. And so it was by accident that we found him, but it is certain that he is the one that refers to the Antichrist. He's the great destroyer of Israel. He is actually going to arrive in Israel. We have the exact dates of his arrival in Israel. We have the exact dates of shared them on previous shows. He's announced that he is God, and we know precisely what he's going to do. And of course, it's interesting that with his falling popularity in the United States, he is now just to the MAGAs.
Horrible. Was abysmal.
Yeah, just to the MAGAs. He has an approval rating that's in the mid to low 30s. And of course, that is the percentage of Americans that are MAGAs that are hopelessly enthralled with this man, and almost an emperor worship, Messiah worship kind of enthralled with him. But there is only one other country on earth where the man has a following. And there is one country where
beloved.
where about 65% of the population of that country would choose him to be their leader in a heartbeat, and that prefer him over all other people worldwide. And that is
Israel.
True.
Israel.
Yep, indeed. So this is the story. He is going to undercut Israel. The next discussion on this, of course, is in the month of September. I don't know exactly the dates, but there's a UN conclave on awarding a Fakistanian state. And the United States has now precluded the PA from attending, which is kind of an interesting ploy. And we're going to have to see how this develops, because we know that between now and at the very latest, June 11th of 2027, but more likely May 22nd of 2026, there's going to be a Islamic state of terror carved out of Israel. And the prophets say that Israel, as a result, becomes indefensible. And so these are the things that we learned, and this is the things that we were seeking to learn as we went through Daniel. So we're going to pick up the story where we left off the last time with our.
I thought we were going to introduce a song first.
Oh, you want to play your? Oh, yeah, there is a song
Because we made a song about this guy.
Yeah, that is about this guy. So we'll go ahead and play this. I'll introduce it by saying that most people are unaware that Hasatan is not a name.
No.
Satan is not a name. And so when people refer to Satan as just as Satan, they really don't know what they're talking about. It is always presented as Hasatan in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. He is equated to a serpent and to a snake. He is also equated to the Assyrian. He is given a name, though, and his name is presented by Isaiah, because Isaiah has the whole sweeping panorama of time. And Isaiah presents him as Halal ben Shakar. Of course, it's interesting because halal is that which is considered good in Islam, and that's Satan's name. Shakar speaks of him being a counterfeit son. In other words, his intent is to counterfeit Dod. He, in Yeshaya 14, we're told explicitly that he wants to rise above Elyon. And Elyon is the title that Yahweh affords Dod.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we find is that in Satan's desire to rise and be worshipped, he isn't so foolish as to say, I want to be worshipped as if I were Yahweh. He does something that is far more painful to Yahweh and far more devastating to humankind. He says he wants to be worshipped as the Son of God, as David, but under a different name. And that name would be Jesus Christ. That is Satan's call. That is what he's trying to do. It's what he has done. And then he's going to play this to the hilt with his corporeal manifestation, where he has now demon-possessed Donald Trump. Now, if you want to know what a demon-possessed man is like when he is feigning a false Messiah, read any one of Paul's letters.
Oh, yeah.
Read the books, the 5 books that I have written called Twistianity, and you will know exactly. It's this fellow right here. He is the wolf in sheep's clothing. There are 5 volumes, this volume 2 of 5 volumes of Twistianity. And as you get to know Paul, who admitted in his second letter to the folks at Corinth, and he's a very, very Trump-like character, he admits that he's demon-possessed.
And a pervert.
He also admits...
He admits he's a pervert, too.
Yeah, he admits he's a pervert in a confabulation scene where he says, while I am a pervert, he says that you wouldn't know, I wouldn't know that I was a pervert, and I wouldn't be telling you I was a pervert if it wasn't for the fact that the Torah calls me a pervert. So I'm a pervert by comparison, by
virtue of the Torah.
By virtue of the Torah.
There you go.
So if there was no Torah, then I wouldn't be a pervert.
All is well.
That sounds your leg, Trump.
I'm sure Jeffrey Epstein said the same thing.
Yes. So anyway, what you have in Paul, if you have a sexual pervert, what you have in Paul is a demon-possessed man. What you have in Paul is an ego that is Trumpian in size. Yeah. What you have in Paul is total and complete confabulation. There's no correlation between what Paul says and reality.
No, none.
And so these men are exceedingly similar. And if you want to know how Donald Trump will continue to paint himself both politically and religiously, read Paul's letters. And of course, if you read Paul's letters and you read Romans, in the 13th chapter of Romans, Paul is equating the God of his religion, which is himself, of course, to Rome, and talking about how his God established the rules of Rome, and you must obey Rome. And that's what Donald Trump is going to do. You're either going to obey him, or well, his henchmen are going to pick you up like the Gestapo, and well, they would throw you in alligator Alcatraz. but they're having trouble running the place. $400 million, and they're having trouble with the plumbing.
They're having trouble running the place.
They had to shut it down. Well, what the heck? So this is the story, and so Halal ben Shakar is the name of Hasatan, the adversary,
and the name of the song.
And Hasatan himself, as a demonic spirit, has demon-possessed very few individuals in history. But we know them as, for example, Paul was one of them. Muhammad admitted that he was also demon-possessed by Satan.
Akiba?
I think it's likely that Akiba was. Very likely that Hitler was. So these are the kinds of individuals. Donald Trump is now demon-possessed. And so Leah, and with help also from
Kevin on video,
has produced a song devoted to the corporeal manifestation of Halal ben Shakar.
And with that, we'll play it.
Halal ben Shakar, we're gonna tear your kingdom down. Yes, we will. Oh, you copper con, we're gonna tear your kingdom down. Oh yes, hit me one more time. You've been building your kingdom all over the land, which you do not own. Tearing Israel's heart out like one of your naughty little girls. Hasatan, we're gonna tear your kingdom down, down. Yes, we are. Yada. Oh yes, is the last witness. He gonna meet with you on the ridge line. Your kingdom down. Yahweh Almighty, lift him up. The man of Edom, he gonna tell the truth about measurement to all the people, so they can hear it for themselves. Oh, Satan, he gonna tear your kingdom down. Oh yes, you've been building your kingdom all over this land. Hallelujah. Yahweh soon come. Satan, we're gonna tear your kingdom down. Not only that, but listen now. The mothers are gonna short. You've been building your kingdom all over the creation of Yehovah. Satan, yes you, we're gonna tear your kingdom down. Not only that, but listen. Satan, oh, we're gonna tear your kingdom down. Yes, we are. With our bare hands, we will. Satan, oh, hello, Ben Shakar. We're gonna tear your kingdom down. You've been building your kingdom all over this land, taking bribes and paying off girls who know too much. Satan, oh yes, Trump the Comic-Con, the loser unbound, no creative will of his own, just an evil mindless, up to nut tone. Listen up and hear me one time. We're gonna tear. Oh yeah, we gonna tear. We gonna tear. Oh yeah, we gonna tear your kingdom down to shield where you belong. All the religious and political with you, like chaff in the wind, you will be gone. You've been building your kingdom all in the house of Yehovah. Satan, we're gonna tear. We're gonna tear your damned kingdom
You're a soul sister now.
We're gonna tear it down.
Yeah,
That's
baby.
what we're gonna do.
One of the things that people may not recognize, even part of the covenant family, is that Yahweh has a propensity to expect more of us than we would normally expect of ourselves. And he doesn't want us to be satisfied with what we have achieved. He appreciates what we have achieved, but he does not want us to be satisfied. And he recognizes we're capable, alongside our God, of doing things that most people would be afraid of even touching.
Oh yeah.
It is actually our responsibility to do as that song says. We are the last line of defense, protecting the world, both Goyim and Israelites, from this man, from this demon. Now, that may not sound like something that most people are willing to tackle. You know, it's one thing to say, I'll share the story of the covenant family, and I'll support the effort to criticize religions that have been opposed to God's people and the covenant family and have misled billions as to Yahweh's nature. But the idea of going after Satan is not something that a lot of people are probably comfortable with, even as part of our covenant family.
Mm-hmm.
But that song hits it right on the head. It is our job to tear him down. Now, one of the things that was so interesting in this approach, and I appreciate you all hanging in here with me on this, there was not a lot of comfort when I demonstrated that the book of Ezekiel was inspired by Satan and is his autobiography.
Yeah, people
I
are
remember.
really uncomfortable
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, that we had quite a falling out, and I think part of that falling out is what led ultimately to this mother goddess cult, because they didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that I didn't sugarcoat the fact that there were 2 grotesque rape scenes, full chapters devoted to
they
rape.
hated it.
And they didn't like the gruesome nature of the way the Islamic terrorists would be used to torture Jews to death.
Yeah.
And I didn't pull any punches. And they didn't like the fact that right from the beginning, I recognized that vision of supposed to be God in heaven, it's a vision of Satan. It's exactly how Satan wants to be perceived. And then when it comes through Ezekiel, he was nothing but a false prophet. Nothing that he said will come true. There is no Gog for Magog.
No.
There is no Magog war.
No.
There is no war of Armageddon.
Nope.
There is no valley of the dry bones that is going to rise up. It's all
confabulations.
Total confabulation. And this notion that God is going to change his story in the end, and that he's only going to keep one of his 7 Moed Mikre, and he's going to change the date and the intent of it, and that he's going to separate it from matzah so that it's counterproductive. And then he's going to add to that All Fool's Day, No Moon Day. Doesn't like me very much. And the Feast of the Beast, where he literally drinks my blood and eats my flesh as a cannibal.
Yeah.
And celebrates doing it. It really doesn't like me at all. We're not buds, so it doesn't bother me at all. But those are his substitutes. And so you're reading this, and then you read that when you actually take the dimensions that the Coppercon measure man, this Donald Trump, is taking of Jerusalem for this satanic temple. Well, the damn thing is not only bigger than the Temple Mount. Mm-hmm. It's not only bigger than the city of Jerusalem.
Right.
It covers almost all of what was Judea. His idea is, I want to pave over the whole damn thing. I'm claiming it all myself. I am literally pouring concrete over this entire thing, and I'm going to build, as Donald Trump says, location, location, location. I'm going to build my naming right here in Jerusalem. And you read this and you realize, wow, this is it. And then the thing that really comes through on it.
Yeah, I said it was like reading Satan's playbook.
Yeah, what really happens that
just didn't know it was him.
That is so striking on this is that he goes back to Eden. And he takes us back to Eden from his perspective. And he is talking about himself as that who was up there on that wall. And how he, in all of his brilliance, came down to lure Noah away. And he kept on saying that he is, the penalty that he suffered was such an indignity to be rendered a snake and a serpent after having been so glorious. And he
thinks he's a little butthurt.
Yeah, it is an amazingly vivid portrayal of Satan himself telling the story of what happened in Eden. Mm-hmm. And the way that he presents himself through the king of Tyre and of this glorification of this rock out there in the sea. He is really full of himself. He's got Donald Trumpitis. And
full of shiticus.
Yeah, full of shiticus. Absolutely. So anyway, it is the only way really to have a full appreciation for everything that we witness right now in Donald Trump and the way he is behaving. He is fulfilling the very prophecy that Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, portrays about what's going to happen and where he's going to go and when he's going to do these things. And we were able to put together the whole thing. And JB, you were a part of your move at that time, but the other guys, they had to live through that. That was a traumatic time to take a book that is the most respected prophet, really, of the rabbis, and it's the most
pretty big on it too.
prophet. Yeah, by far the most quoted prophet in Revelation. There's 36 citations from Ezekiel in the book, and so when you're dealing with all of this, it's tough to convince people. I'm sorry, this man's not a prophet. He is, and he's not speaking for Yahweh. This is a demonic book.
This is Satan's playbook.
And yet we can learn so much from it. We know who we're up against.
Yeah.
It's just like studying the Quran. The more you know about the Quran, the more you know about this very beast that we will be fighting. I mean, so Twistianity, the series from Babel, and the Goddamn Religion series, those 13 books are our playbook to help us understand who this beast is and what he's going to do. And even when we're told about the things he's going to change halfway through that time of Israel's troubles, they're explained in Ezekiel.
Yeah, it's like the psychopath playbook.
Yeah, he confesses to what he is going to do. All right, so no pressure on anybody. I don't know if
but many wouldn't go against
how
him.
you feel about trying to battle Hasatan, but that is your plight. That is mine. That is yours. We are in this to bring Satan's house down, and ultimately this comes with the two witnesses on top of Mount Moriah, precluding him from building the monolith that he's wants to build, trying to protect as many people around the world, and particularly Israelites, from him at this time. And then we ultimately bring him down through the sacrifice of the red heifer. That is his goodbye. He will have no influence over anyone. We were having a little trouble with our secondary mic. Richard's trying to get it. He says, "Okay, I got it now." So this is who we're dealing with when we're dealing with the Antichrist.
Well, let's quote Caleb then. We just quote Caleb, if God's with us, if Yahweh's with us, who cares? Let's tackle him.
Yes, yeah. Caleb is the person that Captain Kirk there is referring to, is one of the great characters in the story. And, he doesn't say a whole lot, but what he does say means a lot. Yeah. And what Caleb did is to recognize that everyone else was wrong. I don't think we hear a word from Yosha ben Nun. And what Moshe said was mostly wrong. And Aaron doesn't say anything at this point. So there's only one man. You've got probably 600,000 people at this point, and there is a single man that is willing to take a stand and be accountable. And that one man is Caleb. And when he does stand up, he simply says that the land is as it was described. This is, at the end of when the spies claim that they don't want to go into the land because, there are giants in the land.
They're Nephilim.
And Nephilim. Of course, that was a lie. And there's the necklaces in the land, and they're scary, and they're so big. We're like fleas and gnats by comparison to them, and we're going to get killed. So we don't want to go into that land. And that's when Caleb just stand up and said, "What's wrong with you?" The fact is, we're here because of Yahweh. If Yahweh can still tolerate us after what you've just said, then he is with us, and it doesn't matter who's there. It's irrelevant who's there. So what do you? Let's just go.
Stop grumbling.
We just walked out of Egypt. That was the most powerful kingdom in the world at this time, and we just walked out of Egypt. Don't you think we can deal with this. And so it's a pretty short speech.
It pretty much shows Jewish confidence throughout history of Yahweh.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know what Israel's response to Caleb's soaring speech was?
Crickets.
They in unison came to the point, let's stone him.
Wow.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
Let's stone him. Yeah, and that of course is that's halfway through this process of Numbers 13 through 15 that we will be reviewing. And for those I know that are anxious to consider Numbers 13 through 15, it's the story of the spies. It has a very bad speech from Moshe in it, and it has an exceedingly sour reaction of the children of Israel. It has God saying, "The hell with you all. Everybody over 40 is dead."
Yep.
Excuse me, everyone over 20. Everyone over
20
is dead. 40 is the time you're going to, the 20 and less are going to wander in the wilderness as herding after sheep, so that you get a taste of what I've been trying to do up to this point. So the under 20s, you get to live, but you're going to spend, you're going to be 60 by the time you get allowed in. So this is my reaction to you. And oh, by the way, the over 20s are nothing but a pile of corpse. There's not a single one of you that's not going to be a corpse. And they were belligerent towards Yahweh to the point that they said, "Oh, the hell with Yahweh." So what we're going to do is we want a new leader, and we're going to choose our own leader. And the next morning they ran up into the promised land. So they, scared to death the day before. Now they said, no, we're going to go ahead and run up and we're going to ignore what Yahweh said. We're going to take it ourselves.
Well, and we can't have it, we want it.
That worked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It worked out really well. They were all slaughtered. Yeah. It was just a complete bloodbath. They were all dead. So it's a really interesting story. And then the next day, everybody wakes up and Yahweh says, I'm going to have the longest speech ever. And that speech, well, Yahweh did what Leah accuses me of doing. She says, if you tell him something, he can't keep a secret.
Nope.
Okay, so Yahweh knew
about you.
At that point that he had one of two choices. One choice, it was that he could just give up on the whole lot of humanity. It didn't work back in Noah's day, and it isn't working now. And it's clear that Israelites are not the answer. They're obnoxious. So let's just give up on the whole thing. Let's fold our tent. Let's do away with the earth and not bother with this nonsense anymore. That was the most rational, logical answer. That's not the one that God chose, however.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. We wouldn't be here. But he chose a different answer, and that was, okay, I'm going to leave this thing. I'm out of here. But I'm not going to leave before I set in place the remedy for all of this. And I'm going to remedy this entire situation so that a remnant of my people can actually enter the promised land the right way. And I'm going to achieve this through a bull, through a ram, and through a goat. And he goes through the delineation of how it's all going to play out. He just spills the beans, man. This is how it's all going to play out. And there it is, immediately after the spies. I don't know how God evidently doesn't have the same issue we have of needing to breathe so that sentences can't be too long. It's the longest damn sentence ever. And it is a single cogent thought of how God's going to resolve this whole thing through a bull, through a ram, and through a goat. And while the ram is more important than either of the other two, he starts the story with the bull. So I'm keeping it in the same order that he has. And then he even goes into a long explanation after he speaks of the sacrifices that will be made by these three individuals. He goes into a whole narrative. This will probably resonate with you, JB, because we've talked about it a lot. That when we recognized there were three destinations for human souls, the conclusion was that if you accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, which very few have done, you will spend your eternity in Shamaim, heaven. If you lead others astray, and you're active in leading others astray, in other words, you are a misleader, then your soul will spend its eternity in Sheol. And those who have been misled, their souls will simply dissipate into nothingness. So we knew that was the criterion. There is no place where God, I thought, actually explained that criterion. It was just the obvious conclusion from the facts. And sometimes we just make obvious deductions from the facts as God lays them out. Well, here in the 15th chapter of Bamidbar in the wilderness,
there it is.
God lays it out.
Yep.
And he says, this remedy, particularly that final sacrifice of the bull, is going to resolve inadvertent
guilt,
an omission, if you will, guilt by omission, guilt by ignorance, as opposed to commission and guilt by being complicit in a crime. And so God is saying that if you are misled, he has a solution for you. If you are misleading, he wants to do away with you.
Yeah, fair.
And it goes right on to delineate what happens with, particularly at the end, because there is this actual very sophisticated explanation that says that the sacrifice of the ram can resolve all levels of guilt.
Yep.
So, I was in my youth religious. I was in my youth political. Those are crimes of commission where you are misleading people. And you have to stop doing them before you can approach Yahweh. But what Dode accomplished in carrying away our guilt resolves that. So his sacrifice on matzah that took our guilt and put it into Sheol, matzah can purge us of all forms of guilt, omission and commission. Much more powerful. The Adama Parah of Teruah, by this definition that God is providing, can't do that.
It's for incidental guilt.
He is only, for incidental or guilt by omission, guilt by being inadvertently being misled as opposed to being misleading. Now, why do you think that would be the case? Why is my sacrifice being limited in what it can resolve? And Dode's was not.
These are brand new people, right?
They are.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've been with you a whole hour.
But some an hour, some 12 hours. The longest anyone could have been there is 12 hours.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Right.
What do they know now? They still got to get covered so they can do something.
Right. So God would be insane if he were to say, I'm going to make people immortal such that I have to live with them and endure them for all time. And I'm the one bringing them here. And I know nothing about them, and they know nothing about me at this point. I mean, they are essentially a slightly corrupted slate that is going to be a clean slate here in a matter of hours. Once we go through the whole spectacle of the Adama Parah, I'm going to clean their slate.
Yeah,
but at that point, we have a job. We're no longer after Hasatan bringing that house down. We now have a job, and it's to educate these literal babies. They don't know Yahweh's name.
They don't know.
They don't know the terms and conditions of the covenant.
No.
Right? They don't know squat. And so what they are, but they've been given license because we've cleaned their slate. They've been given license to enter the millennial Shabbat of Sukkah. And during that time, they will continue to live so long as they do not become religious. We find out that the goat, Elia, has the responsibility for when one person goes astray inadvertently, he nips it in the bud before it becomes viral and becomes religious.
Good.
So that's what Elia does at this point. And it's our job to encourage people to understand the terms and conditions of the covenant, understand how Dode fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, because going forward, they're still in that same position. They only become covenant and immortal and enriched and empowered and perfected and adopted the same way we did, by what Dode has achieved. And that's going to take them knowing what we know, understanding what we understand, and accepting it. And there's a lot to learn.
Oh my!
And God's not going to, not going to cut corners at this point. There's a lot to learn, and that is going to be our job with these people. And also, these people, he says specifically, he's going to open their womb.
Yeah, they're going to have children and children and children and children.
That is correct.
Right.
That is right. Exactly. We have employment. You always wanted to have a job waiting for us. We're going to go for this.
Job security. Yes.
We are going to go from the job we have now, which is cultivating Shabua and Teruah and explaining the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. And
they don't call it planting seeds for nothing, baby.
But we are going to be at it for a long time. So we got a long-term job security going forward, baby. Because with all that we have learned, we are in the best position to teach. And God delegates everything he's going to delegate it to Dode. Now, Dode's a pretty damn good teacher. You're a really good student, really good teacher.
Very quotable.
And if you look at what Dode wrote, like I have one of these volumes of Yada Ya, it's one of the very first. It's I think volume 3 of an Introduction to God, which is the first series. It's devoted almost entirely to the 119th Mizmor, which is Dode's analysis of the Quran. Excuse me, of the Torah. That's so much I'm supposed to be doing. It's his analysis of the Torah, and with his analysis of the Torah, we understand that he was an excellent student, and therefore became there you go.
It's an epic poem.
Yeah, there it is, and became a very proficient teacher. So. One of the things that you realize in life is that you ought not be delegating something that you don't know how to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're a much better delegator when you know how to do what you're asking someone to do, and you can check up on them. You see in the various scenes that we do from the Yahweh blog aspects of this house, Kirk, you've actually been here, and you know that this house was built by totally unskilled labor. We didn't have any skilled labor on this island. And fortunately, I've done this now 40 times, and I knew how to do these crafts. And so I taught people how to do it because I knew how to do it. I watched you do it.
I absolutely watched you do it, yeah. I'm going, wow, he really knows his stuff.
When it comes to remodeling and building, I do. And so Dode knows the Torah, and he knows how to teach. And so he's going to delegate through us, and we know the Torah, and we know how to teach. So this is our job.
I'm a very poor teacher.
Well,
I'm a very good student, though.
Okay, well, we're gonna
be the music teacher.
Yeah, well, actually, we're going to be learning all along. That's one of the reasons why Yahweh doesn't ever do a data dump.
Yeah.
Even with his prophets, he does not start off with full and complete knowledge. You learn on the job, and we will continue to be students. I've thought about this whole process of how we go from here, and have envisioned for that 1,000 years where I would live and how I would be able to have an environment to continue to study, learn, share, and teach, and then how we can project ourselves to people around the world, because they're going to be Goyim, and there'll be also Yehudim that are going to be mortals. during this time, and our job is to teach them. And so we have to have a way to project all of this to them, which I think this Yahweh blog happens to be an exceedingly effective approach, particularly with the library of books backing it up. So that is our job, and that's how Yahweh goes through the whole thing. And you are correct that it is the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah purges. It's complete and total restoration, by the way, total reconciliation of the relationship. So Yahweh performs, and he even explains it. He says, I will perform a miracle. And what's going to happen with the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah? It will
and it's a big, big deal to him.
Genuinely miraculous in this process.
Very big
and
deal.
It says it's total shalem, total reconciliation, and complete purging. And the bull he's got 4 different terms for this bull. And it is complete fulfillment of the mission through him on behalf of Dode the ram. And it has also the goat serving as the master of ceremonies and all this, and making his contributions throughout. It's a beautiful picture. And who would have thought that we would find the complete story in Numbers?
You'd have to go far, didn't we?
Yeah, and Numbers is the book when you probably didn't translate any part of Numbers, JB, when you were doing it, because Genesis, Barashit, interesting, right? But you open Numbers and it starts just with this whole pile of names.
And
who begat, and you go, oh my God.
Okay, well, they know what they like.
Okay, well,
and then it goes to the story of the adulterous woman, and no one's ever figured that one out before.
Yeah.
And then you've got just nothing but tragedy from that point on. And then it's got even the story of the red heifer, and no one's figured that one out before. And you got the waters of Meribah, and you got Moshe literally saying, "Kill me now, because this job is impossible. I can't do this job."
Numbers is really a rehash of Kara.
Yeah, so I just think that
the same stories in Kara.
Yeah, I think that Numbers is almost entirely prophetic. I don't think that there's anything in Numbers that had any value to the participants in the Exodus.
Yeah.
Not in the moment it happened. No,
I don't think there's a single lesson there that, in fact, it's obvious there isn't a single lesson in the Torah's presentation of Bamidbar Exodus that did the children of Israel any good. They were awful. And so there's no purpose for the book unless the purpose of the book is to reveal our situation today and to teach us how we should respond. And that's why in Numbers 15, and I know I'm talking now ahead of what we're talking about in terms of the fulfillment of what's in and the explanation of what's in Daniel. But it is our responsibility to know what's going to transpire and who we're up against. And this is why that story at the end of God presenting his remedy, he says that the bull can salvage the relationship. He can totally repair the relationship with those who are inadvertently guilty. But then he goes on to say nobody at this point can resolve the belligerent. And if you are blaspheming the name of Yahweh, piercing the name of Yahweh, if you are doing anything that thwarts Yahweh's message, his word,
or his 2 sons,
or anything pertaining to this, or that account that he has just laid out of the work of the bull, the ram and the goat, that you are going to die. You're going to be separated from the covenant family.
Bye-bye.
And it's execution. It's over. I mean, no sympathy, no mercy, no nothing. You did
sayonara.
The crime. You did the crime. You're going to do the time.
That's right.
Immediately thereafter, there's the story that has always been presented There's this poor old little guy looking for some firewood that's out picking up some sticks on the Shabbat.
And I stone him to
Oh my
death.
God, that mean old God of the Torah, he says, stone him to death.
Yeah.
Guess what? There isn't a stick in the story.
Nope. Not a single stick.
Not one. And he's not picking them up either.
No.
No, he's trying to control access to 2 trees. The story is about 2 trees. Mm-hmm. And so if you're reading the Torah and you read about 2 trees, what would those 2 trees be?
Tree of lives and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yada and Dode.
Now, are you familiar with the full definition of Ale? Dode was the Pesach Ale, was he not?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the primary definition of Ale is lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the second and third definition of Ale is?
Tree.
Doorway and mighty tree. Who fulfilled Passover?
Dode.
What is the purpose of Passover?
Open the doorway.
Open the door so we can move into so we can take our guilt away. The next day.
But there's something you're missing. What does Pesach open the doorway to?
Tree of lives.
Eternal life.
Eternal life. Eternal life. So if Dode is the source of fulfilling Passover, El means he's the mighty tree, and that he is the doorway, and that Pesach extends our lives. What is Dode?
Tree of lives.
He is the tree of lives,
Yes,
is he not?
Yes.
Absolutely, unequivocally, Dode is the tree of lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the garden, are you familiar with any discussion on the tree of lives other than to say there's a tree of lives? Is there any other reference to it?
No.
None.
No.
Is there? Literally none.
No.
So why would God tell us about something if we have no knowledge of it? Now, he also tells us there's the tree of knowledge, doesn't he?
Yes.
Hmm.
What did Yahweh choose as my name in this process?
Yada.
Yada.
To know.
Is yada the verbal root of dayat, which is the tree of knowledge?
Yes.
Yes.
So yada is the process of knowing, right?
Yes.
Would these books back here provide some knowing
Oh, yeah.
about Yahweh? Mm-hmm.
Including Yahweh himself.
What is the purpose of the lesser luminary related to the greater luminary and the creation account, as they serve as signs for the Moed?
To reflect Dode's life.
There you go. Dode is the greater luminary. He is called the sun. Yahweh says he will be as brilliant as the sun upon his return. Dode is clearly the greater luminary. The lesser luminary's job is to reflect the greater luminary's light and to point the way, their signs for the Moed, which Dode and this lesser luminary, Yada, fulfill. So, what's the purpose of the tree of knowledge?
Give you a choice.
It's to point in
To the
the
Moed.
direction of the tree of lives and explain how to get there.
Yeah. Yes.
That is the purpose of Yada Yahweh. That is the purpose of the tree of knowledge, is to say, there's the tree of life, it's Dode. This is what Dode has done to open the doorway to lives on our behalf. Prior to us figuring this out, had there been anyone in human history to recognize that Dode is the person who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim?
No.
Not a single one.
So have we done exactly what that describes?
Congratulations. Yes, sir.
We have, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
And so Yada Yahweh is the very tree of lives. Now, why after eating it, just taking a bite, did Yahweh kick them out of the garden and then lock the gates to the garden, sink the garden under Lake Van so that nobody would get back in? Why did he do that?
Least they reach out their hand to the tree of lives.
They had no idea what to do with the tree of lives. And if it's just like those people, the mortal remnant of Israel that are an hour old, that come back at that time, 1 hour, and God's saying, we can clean their slate, but we are not giving them eternal life at this point. Why? Because they don't know enough.
Right.
So how much did they know about knowledge of the tree of life when they took one bite of the fruit?
Nothing.
Nothing. They were not equipped to capitalize on the tree of lives. And how much time would transpire from that moment to the point that the tree of lives took root and was manifest as Yada Yahweh to explain all of this?
6 days.
6,000 years, right?
Yeah.
More than that.
Wow.
Almost 7.
So, yes. Now, when the book called The Tree of Lives, written by the book called The Tree of Knowledge, written by a person whose name means to know, was it not published and available with these programs in the immediate vicinity of the very time Yahweh was saying, I'm going to open Eden back up for you?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there was no way to get back to Eden until now. And now is the time that the tree of knowledge has to point to the tree of lives, because at this very moment, there'll be 2 harvests to enter this restored Eden, and then the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah to clean the slate to allow the mortal remnant to enter the garden again.
Hey, I know a guy that tried to deny access to those 2 trees.
So there's when you look at the verb that is used to pluck up those trees and to control them and to preclude access, we indeed have a fellow that did exactly that, don't we?
Yeah, I think we do.
He precluded access to it and replaced all of these books filled with knowledge with his own name, didn't he?
Sure did. It's a federal crime, too.
That, by the way, is the prophecy of the trees that were plucked up.
Oh, what are we going to do to
And
him?
oh, by the way, what it says is he's going to die.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it says. And you know what we throw at him?
Aben,
Yeah, and you know what Eben is?
father and son.
It is a combination of 2 words. Leia's got it. Ab, father, and Ben, son.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to throw
There's
at
also
you.
this fellow that is called a Rocky Croc.
Yeah.
And
That's what
Greg,
gets thrown at him. That's what gets thrown at him.
Feel the weight of that.
Feel the weight of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a pretty amazing conclusion. And now, for the first time ever, you're in a position to know why Yahweh said that uprooting these trees, if you will, and plucking them up, precluding access to them, trying to control the value of the tree of knowledge related to the 7th day. What are we going to be? When are we allowed back into the Garden of Eden?
Yeah, Sukkah.
Yeah, for the 7th day, isn't it? The 7th Moed Mikre for the 7th day. And oh, by the way, what day of the week does that transpire?
On a Shabbat.
Here's the Shabbat.
Shabbat. And when does the Adamah Parah make the sacrifice?
On a Shabbat.
Shabbat.
And when are we harvested into that as the covenant family?
On a Shabbat.
On a Shabbat.
Yay.
And when did Dode fulfill matzah?
On a Shabbat.
On a
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
So the day they're not supposed to do
making-
nothing.
Starting to see a pattern here.
Starting to see a pattern here. Now you understand the story
Yeah.
and why he responded the way he did. And for somebody that like me who had said previously, I don't understand the penalty when Yahweh didn't even bother to explain it. He explained it before he even talked about the trees. He said that the person who does these kinds of things must die.
It's also
Because
in
they can't-
Devarim.
They can't enter the garden again. Now then we're followed that by one of the great egregious religious practices.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
What do if you're an observant Jew? What do you dangle from your clothing?
Oh, I know. Zitziot.
Yeah, what is it? And they call it a tassel, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a little blue thread that runs through that tassel, isn't it? Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the sign that they're an observant Jew, isn't
A
it?
religious Jew. Yep.
Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know in that presentation there's no mention of a tassel?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And
Religio.
do you know in that presentation, the what is described is a flower?
Mm-hmm.
And you know that it's a blue flower?
Mm.
And that the flower is actually less important than the twisted thread that comprises it. Now, I would ask you, are you aware of any place where Yahweh makes a big deal about a plant with a blue flower on it?
Flax.
Yeah. Between the hail and the and Passover being demonstrated and Mitzrayim, he tells us all about the flax and its blue flower. And he uses the same terms. And he describes exactly what that thing is and how that flower is to remind you of what his son is going to accomplish to extend your life on Passover. And oh, by the way, it is to be kanaf.
Covered.
Kanaf does not mean exposed.
Nope.
It means
Nope.
It means concealed.
Hmm.
So it is concealed so that you can see it as an individual. When you put on your robe or your clothes, you can see it behind the hem, but nobody else can. And it's designed to remind you of that flax, because when that flax blue flower blooms, what is it? It's time for Jog Matzah, Passover, Matzah, and Bakurim. And what do you make from the flax? Linen. What does the priest wear when he is going to bless the mercy seat of and anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant?
Linen.
Linen.
Yeah.
From head to toe.
Right,
Yes.
yes. Linen is the pure garment to cover us. It's a white and pure garment. So,
Mm-hmm. So ditch those Etziot, kids.
so
Mm-hmm.
we will
Walk
have,
away from your father's house.
The Yahweh story of it is spectacular, and we're going to share the whole thing as a document, and then we will, this very text that we are sharing now will lead us to it. But I thought it was
Worth noting.
worth the
You can't keep a secret, kid.
There,
Let's
I
just
appreciate
face
it. We
it.
like it.
It's called a teaser. It's a teaser.
You
called
carry
a teaser.
on.
It's
Don't you
called a
let them
teaser
talk you out of it.
for things to come.
Yeah.
So is that a big surprise to you, JB? What do you think about that?
That's fascinating stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Again,
Yeah.
mistranslations have done the world such a disservice. It's not enough when they're like not. They're accurate, but not enough. But when they just outright change words
Yeah.
to create their own message,
Yes.
which does so much damage. But
Does
they
Hebrew
love
have
for picking
yeah.
up sticks because that enforces do nothing day.
Yes, do nothing day. Do you are you aware that in the Hebrew language there are probably 15 different words for branch, stem, stick, that sort of thing?
I know I've seen several. Yes.
Yes. One of them happens to be a title that I'm given, Choder. Another one is the title that Dode is given, Shamak.
Okay.
But there are a host of terms that mean stick, stem, branch, shoot, that sort of thing. A netzer is one. Many of them. Have you ever translated the word etz?
Yes.
And what does etz mean?
Tree.
So what was the word that's in Numbers 15?
Yep.
It's etz, isn't it? It's etzim in the plural. And so if God wanted to say he was picking up sticks. Now, in this particular
It's
case,
deliberately deceptive to translate it as sticks.
terrible. Yeah.
That
terrible.
is not an accident.
That is religious malfeasance. It's just like you the Titzit, and you look up the basis of the name, which is tits. That's tits. It's just tits. And when you read that, its definition is blossom, flower, and bud. So how do you get tassel out of that?
You can't.
You just can't. It just completely eliminates the nonsense. But are you going to be able to figure that out if you're just reading an English translation or even a Hebrew translation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Or a Hebrew rendering of it? No. Yet you need to do the study, and you need to do something that is such an important part of the Yada presentation. And that is that we don't just go to the oldest manuscripts and see how the words are presented there and correct the Masoretic text. We scrub every word of the diacritical marks of the Masoretes, which are rabbis, in the 11th century.
Yep.
Because the language is already vocalized. There's 5 vowels amongst the 22 letters. You don't need the diacritical marks.
Nope.
And they give a religious flavor to things. And they're the ones who convoluted the message, because the Judaism is the... I used to think that Scientology and Mormonism were, among the dumbest religions.
No, it's Judaism.
Judaism is just absolutely stupid. And so they corrupted everything to serve their agenda. And then the next thing you have to do, if you really want to understand, you got to be willing to take the time to look not only at the verbal or actionable root of each word,
but first use,
and realize how it can be defined. You look at first use of every word, but also you have to look, if a word is uncommon, you have to look at all of the words that are comprised of those same elements. Most of the words have a 3-letter root.
Yep.
And so you need to look at every word in the language that shares that 3-letter root. Now to do that, it takes 100 times more time and effort to create these translations. But now you're in a position to actually understand what the text is saying.
Yep.
So
think about it. The diacritical markings are the rabbi's way of controlling the language. And I'm sure you've read 1984. And controlling language is a powerful tool for an oppressor.
That is correct.
And what do they call that system?
The Shoah system, which means to deceive.
Methinks they tell on themselves.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, I do.
Yes.
The title they chose for that system means to deceive.
Yeah. Let that sink in, kids.
But they're just a great case. They created a religious symbol out of something that was one of Yahweh's more interesting metaphors. And it was to be hidden, and it was to lead us in the direction of Chag Matzah and the blue flax that introduces this time of year, so that they would know about life and that tree of life and the tree of knowledge that would be opened up to them, and all of the benefits that his son would provide by fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. So,
no, we'd rather wear strings like on a weave that our mother forgot to cut. Yeah. Tragically stupid.
Yeah, it's just like they went from, don't carve your hair and your beard such that you're mimicking a religious character, because the beards that were worn and the cuttings and the hairs, and it was all done at the time to associate one with one religious sect or another. And God says, just don't do that. I don't want you to do that. And they took that to, well, I'm just going to grow the sides of my hair and have these little curly cues. It'll be really cute. I'll put little
curlers in there,
and I'll have the cutest curly cues of any any boy on the block.
Again, idiocy.
Or they walk around in their kippas, the yarmulkes, and they think that they're showing a respect for their God and to their religion. And yet, where did the damn circular beanie cap come from?
Greece.
Yeah, it came from Greece. It's sun god worship. It's the halo from
Helios.
Sun god worship. Why do you think the Pope wears one?
Yeah, same thing.
And then they dress in a star, and you say, well, I've gotten to know Dode pretty well.
We're seeing a star mentioned.
Where's there a star mentioned and associated with him? There's the sun. The sun, I guess, is a star. We never, nobody draws our sun as a star, and the sun reference is only to his brilliance. It has nothing to do. He's not the sun.
I know where it mentions a star. You've lifted up the star of your king, which is Bar Kokhba.
Yeah,
They
well,
did that. That's where it mentions a star.
Yeah, there is a star associated with Judaism.
Oh,
Because
sure.
the
Yeah.
founder of Judaism was Rabbi Akiba, and he promoted a false Messiah. Can you imagine that the founder of your religion, Rabbi Akiba, and he is best known for promoting a false Messiah, and he gave you the star because that false Messiah's name was Son of a Star, and he caused the wrath of Rome to fall on Judea, where hundreds of thousands of Jews were crucified and savagely murdered, where Hadrian actually renamed the land as the ultimate curse right now. If he had not done that, there would be no thought about Palestinians or Palestine.
Ever.
And this whole theme that is being used against, Palestine will be free, this genocidal saying against Israel, it would not exist if it were not for Akiba. And
That's
Akiba
true.
is responsible for the diaspora. And what happened with the diaspora? Of course, the Holocaust. And Akiba played right into the Christians' hands. Rather than refuting the Christian New Testament, as I do, and Twistianity, absolutely tearing it to ribbons, proving that none of it's true, rather than doing that and explaining that Dode is the actual Messiah, the Son of God, and he told us exactly when he was going to fulfill Passover. He told us he would even do so through crucifixion. And so you've created this myth and this Jesus fellow. Rather than do that, he foisted another false Messiah on his people.
That's right.
And in doing that, because now you have warring messiahs, it gave Christendom all the more
Reason to
energy
hate.
to hate Jews and to
Oh, yes.
demonize Jews.
Oh, yes.
So what a horrible individual. And yet he's the father of rabbinic Judaism.
It is the icon we feel most comfortable being persecuted under. That's right.
It's tough when you're out there and you realize that the kingdom that must be torn down includes Judaism,
Yes.
Christianity, Islam, America's malfeasance in the world. It's a lot to accomplish, and we have very little time to do it. So we'll never make it our way to numbers 13, 14, and 15 if we don't finish our presentation of Daniel. So I'm going to return to that text now. Rich, if you're still with us here, you can bring it up, and I will share it. It begins, and so I began to consider, this is Daniel speaking, and to process this, and then behold, a young and independent crowned goat who was headstrong and imposing, coming from the west before the presence of the entire region, and yet not making contact with or striking the land. So this individual is Alexander the Not So Great. I'm not a fan of Alexander. He was a ruthless, enslaving, sadistic,
Psycho.
egotistical monster. In fact, he is very much like if Donald Trump was younger and articulate and had any skills, I guess he would have the same ego and approach of Alexander. Alexander clearly was a psychopath. He had no compassion or empathy for anyone. He was really a savage individual. But that's, he came from the West, and he conquered the entire region without really touching Israel. The only interaction with Israel with Alexander is told by the rabbis. There is nothing historically that is known. But he went to Egypt, became a god in Egypt, and he devastated, of course, Tyre on the way down. He did run into an Egyptian outpost in what is presently Gaza, and he took way too long, but devastated them. And then when he finally got tired of being a god in Egypt, he went back after his white whale and Darius, and ultimately brought him down and went all the way to Babylon, which after he conquered, he died in Babylon. So that is the story of this young crowned goat seeking adventure and glory. And he had a prominent and conspicuous horn between his eyes. So at the conclusion of this prophecy, Yahweh will reveal that this headstrong and imposing, well-fortified and tactically consistent Tashfir, young and agile crowned goat, making and seeking adventure and glory while affecting the entire region without doing much with Israel, if anything, would be charging out of Macedonia in the west. Further affirming the prophecy, and by the way, we now have a copy of Daniel dating to about 250 BCE, and we know that it was revealed around 525 to 550 BCE, and Alexander's wild ride through the region was in about 330 BCE, in that range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was pretty prophetic for it at that time. So further affirming the prophecy, there is no contemporaneous evidence that Alexander the Great had any meaningful contact with Yisrael. And most assuredly, he did not wage war against Yehuda or Jerusalem. But by introducing Hellenic culture into neighboring Syria and to Egypt, Alexander had more influence on the development of Judaism than any other Gentile. In fact, even synagogue is a Greek term.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as evidence of this, 400 years after Alexander ravaged Gaza and marched through Judea without opposition in 332 BCE, so I was within a couple of years of having my date correct, Josephus, one of Judaism's three most notorious voices, along with Rabbi Akiba and Maimonides, told the it's just hard. Sometimes it's just hard to imagine stuff. So you got the three voices here. You've got Rabbi Akiba, who brought the wrath of Rome on Israel, Judea, caused the land to be renamed Palestina, which is now their greatest plight, and foisted a false Messiah on Israel and lost some 30,000 of his own apostles in the process, and got hundreds of thousands of Jews killed. So he's your main guy. And then you have Josephus. And Josephus is nothing but a lousy traitor. He is a liar and a traitor.
He's a louse.
Everything he wrote is untrue. His biggest story is, of course, Masada, and everything he said about Masada is a fraud. And he was a religious guy that turned to a general, that turned into a coward, that capitulated to the Romans, told the Romans how to defeat the Jews, and then because he served the Roman interests, he was brought to Rome as a hero. So I mean, he's a real snake. And then you've got Maimonides, who was essentially a servant of Saladin and of Islam, and was educated in Islam and based much of his writing on Islam.
Some say he converted.
Those are your three guys.
Makes sense.
Bravo.
Oh, bravo, baby.
What a motley crew that is.
They're the ones that told this story, and it was no doubt designed to curry favor with those he had abandoned, weaving this fanciful tale to promote the myth that the great general paid homage to the high priests of Judaism. Therefore, 4 centuries after the fact, the traitor wrote, and this is Josephus, Alexander went to Jerusalem after having taken Gaza. Jaddua, the high priest, had a warning from God received in a dream in which he saw himself vested in a purple robe with his mitre, a golden plate on which the name YHWH was engraved on his head. Accordingly, he went to meet Alexander at Shapha to take in the view of the temple. followed by the priests, all clothed in fine linen, and by a multitude of citizens, Jaddua awaited the coming of the king. When Alexander saw the high priest, he reverenced God. This is Targum, Leviticus R13 to the end. And he saluted Jaddua, while the Jews with one voice greeted Alexander. Oh, by the way, Jews don't have one voice on anything
ever.
and never have.
No.
And there is no place, nobody was ever named Jaddua, Jaddua. Nevertheless, this is what they wrote. And of course, Alexander never mentions having met a Jew. When Parmenio, the general, gave expression to the army's surprise at Alexander's extraordinary act, because of course he's acknowledging a rabbi, that one who ought to be adorned by all as king should adore the high priest of the Jews. These guys are crazy. Alexander replied, I did not adore him, but the God who hath honored him with his high priesthood. For I saw this very person in a dream, in this very habit, when I was at Dios in Macedonia, when I was considering with myself how I might obtain dominion of Asia. And he exhorted me to make no delay, but boldly to pass over the sea, promising that he would conduct my army and would give me the dominion over the Persians.
I have a big dream. Sure.
Yeah. Now, this is Alexander, who thought that he was the son of Amun, and then he was the son of the Babylonian gods, and he was also the son of Zeus. That he had the big YHWH. He saw him in a dream, man. Yes, indeed. Alexander gave the high priest his right hand and went into the temple and offered sacrifices to God according to the high priest's directions, treating the whole priesthood magnificently.
If you believe in that, you could also believe in unicorns that shit rainbows.
Yes. Oh, by the way, in 330 BCE, was there a priesthood?
No.
No, there was a high priest because they wanted that job. But,
yeah, but
the
they
fact
revolted.
of the matter is that Yahweh's idea of the Cohen being responsible as ethnic lineage via the Lowy, that was the whole Maccabean revolt. Well, it's couched now as this was the rebellion against Greek influence in the religion of Judaism. There was nothing of that sort.
No,
the reality,
they inculcated it.
The reality was that you had one group of religious fanatics that wanted to take control over
the other group of religious fanatics.
And the one group had a divine sanction, and that they were the Lowy Cohen. And the other group didn't have one. So they became the basis of the rabbis. We're great. We're wonderful. We are victorious. We're better terrorists than the other guys are.
Worship us.
So the Maccabeans beat them, and therefore they established themselves, but they replaced the priesthood.
Yep.
So what is being described here could not have even occurred.
Yeah.
So don't believe a word of it. Josephus lied for a living. And while Gaza, well, he did. The only reason he's alive was at this writing about this is that he lied.
He had a patron, Rome.
Well, Gaza was pummeled and Judea was not. This conversation never took place. Standard religious rhetoric whereby the faithful justify their beliefs and honor their leaders through the endorsements of others. It's the same thing that Christians say. See, there must have really been a Jesus Christ because Josephus mentions him.
He says so.
Oh, boy, that's a really credible authority. And oh, by the way, how old was Josephus when your Jesus would have been killed by those dastardly Jews?
0.
How old he was?
He was a glint in his father's eye.
he wouldn't even be born for another 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Zero.
And the oldest account that would actually be written in Greek and would have the same name, Iousu Christou, our oldest witness to that text. You know what century it dates to?
Third?
The 9th.
Oh, really? Wow.
That's all right. Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
if that's the best you got, is an endorsement from the
Oof.
8th century from a known trader who wasn't even born at the time.
You got credibility
maybe
problem.
maybe you got a credibility problem.
Any footnote's a footnote, huh?
Yes. By the way, Josephus wasn't finished weaving his Mossad, not Mossad, but Masada kind of tale. You know, the whole thing about Masada and the zealots up there, and how they were heroes, and how they held off for those dastardly Romans. You know why the Romans came to Masada? Why they wouldn't even cared about Masada?
Because they were bandits.
They were bandits.
Yeah, they were stealing.
They had robbed Roman factories, and so they had stolen from the Romans. The Romans don't like that, and so they went after them because they were thieves. And rather than this long, month after month after month assault, you know how long it took the Romans to take Masada? 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Really, that's short.
2 weeks. It just was not. There is no part of Masada, this tale in Jewish folklore that is true, and the whole story comes from Josephus. And now the archaeological evidence is that he lied about the.
So,
thing.
what are you trying to say? Jews are full of shit?
Those,
I think you might be right there.
You know, it wasn't uncommon at the time, particularly those associated with Rome, and to a large degree Greece, that there is very little correlation between what the so-called historians wrote and what actually transpired.
So true.
They weren't actually historians. They were storytellers. And their stories were no more
They were spin doctors
than Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. That is what they did. They were employed to spin stories together, such that the heroes of the story were the kings and the generals and the like. I mean, that whole story of Eusebius being the propagandist of Constantine and weaving the story of he saw this symbol emblazoned before the sun, and he said, and the sign conquer. It never happened. I mean, it didn't even come close to happening, and it wasn't even in the first 2 editions that Eusebius wrote. But by the time that, Roman Catholicism had been established through Eusebius and Constantine's work, they needed to turn Constantine into the great hero. And so he just made up the story. That is what Josephus is doing here. He continued, and when the book of Daniel,
there it is.
Daniel was shown to him. See, Dan 7, 6, 8, 5, 8, 22, 11, 3 through 4. That's what it says in the text. There, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians. He supposed that he was the person intended, and he rejoiced. The following day, Alexander asked the people what favors he should grant them, and the high priest requests. He accorded them the right to live in full employment of the laws of their forefathers.
Such nonsense.
11, 8 ages.
More Hebrew campfire stories, kids.
Oh, liars lie. That's what liars do.
Yeah, confabulations.
All this actually shows is how desperate Jewish leaders became when attempting to justify their exalted positions, their religious laws, and their pervasive Greek influence all the way to the yarmulke and their meeting in synagogues, and the pervasive Greek influences, especially in Kabbalah. Jewish encyclopedias acknowledge all the accounts which the Talmud and the Midrash give concerning Alexander the Macedonian are of a legendary character.
Oh, imagine that.
Now, since the Jewish Encyclopedia acknowledges that, what does legendary character mean, fellas?
It just whoever's writing the book, you want to read the story.
Made up crap.
Sure. You could be a legend.
Yes, it is a legend. It isn't the truth.
Foibles and fables.
Yeah. What is remarkable, however, is that in 533 BCE, before Greece had risen on the world stage, and 200 years before Alexander was even born, Daniel described the Macedonian general using a fitting array of terms. Alexander would come to Shushan from the west. He was very young, just 20 years old in 336 BCE, when he became king and set off seeking adventure and glory. He was headstrong and imposing, a well-fortified and consistent young man, relying upon his phalanx through it all is why he prevailed in some of his battles. Otherwise, he just chose made a battle decision that would normally have ended in disaster. But there's always, with so many generals over time, there's one that's going to roll seven times in a row. And no matter how bad the decision was, that person's going to prevail. That's the story of Alexander. He made
Absolutely
horrible decisions that all consistently turned out well. And it may be just because his adversary wasn't very skilled. You know, the kings don't typically make great generals, and his adversary was a king. Alexander did something that was sort of underhanded. He lured Darius away from his supply caravan, and he stole it. And he got two things. One is all the money to pay the troops. Now, if you can't pay your troops, you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And so he got all the money to pay Darius's troops, and he also stole Darius's wife and his Darius's daughters. And that caused Darius to want to sue for peace over and over again, but Alexander would have nothing to do with it. So at this moment, Alexander was obsessed with Darius III, the king of Persia. This is now Daniel 8:6. When he came up to the ram, possessing the two horns, which I had seen standing before the presence of the waterway, he chased after him with a vengeance and in hot pursuit, while demonstrating a resourceful cunning and talent. Well, this depicts the goat chasing after the ram, revealing that the Macedonian would be the aggressor pursuing the Persian in battle, which is exactly what happened. Alexander would come after Darius with a vengeance, staying in hot pursuit. And yet, all the while, it was obvious that the young Macedonian was more talented and resourceful, having never lost a battle. But also, keep in mind, the Persians were resolutely pagan. While Darius and his priests promoted a wide array of false gods, they were principally devoted to the mythology of Baal, the Lord. For a considerable time, the Persians had menaced the Greeks, and they were very good at it, taking the battle to them, beating them badly and consistently. They would fight in the middle of the Greek peninsula, and so there was some lingering animosity here. They were not friends.
No.
And while I witnessed him approaching and making contact with the ram, he was embittered and obsessed with him. Therefore, he lashed out at the ram, breaking both of his horns. And with the ram, there was insufficient capability, power, and resources to withstand his presence. So he was overthrown and humbled as he brought him down to earth. He was trampled and tread upon by him as the aggressor. So there was no way to spare or rescue the ram from his influence and ability. Daniel 8:7. Well, King Darius III of Persia fought Alexander in his Hellenic League at the location of his choosing, a wide open plain near the ancient Ninotha, which we would pronounce Nineveh, not far from Mosul in today's northern Iraq, much closer to his supply lines than Alexander's by a long shot. Darius, who led the much larger force, was fighting close to home and actually prepared the battleground. He actually flattened the terrain to give his war chariots the optimum operating conditions. While we will consider the prelude to this battle in a moment, suffice it to say for now that Alexander had spent the previous year transitioning from warrior to savage, losing all sense of civility while besieging Tyre and Gaza. Then in Egypt, he positioned himself as the master of the universe and the living incarnation of Amun.
Yep.
He's a charming fellow. Darius, on the other hand, just wanted to be left alone. He offered Alexander his kingdom and his treasure to return his kidnapped family and to stop pursuing him. Replying to one of the king's offers, the Macedonian wrote, "From King Alexander to Darius, if you wish to dispute your throne, stand up and fight for it, and do not run away. Wherever you hide, I will find you."
Obsessed much?
Wow, obsessed much. Alexander was, well, what I wrote, obsessed much.
Yeah.
He marched into the heart of the Persian Empire, I should say, crossing the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers without opposition, all the while having given peace a chance. Darius was now building an army of over 50,000 warriors, with some claiming twice that many soldiers. It is said that half of his troops were on horseback. By comparison, there were 40,000 Greek infantry and 7,000 Greek cavalry. However, be cautioned, as we have discovered with the Roman propensity to alter the Christian New Testament to serve their agenda, the mythical appeal to revise history was inbred. So, to project Alexander as a god among men, some ancient Greek historians would have us believe that the Persian army numbered into the hundreds of thousands, outnumbering his foe by a little or a lot. On his home turf and on a battlefield he had prepared to his advantage, Darius offered to cede the western half of the Persian Empire without a fight. And yet, Alexander declined. Parmenion, one of Alexander's generals, said that if he were Alexander, he would have accepted the generous offer. To which Alexander, demonstrating his enormous ego, replied, "I would too, if I were Parmenion."
That.
Just a little egotistical, that guy.
Oh, what a jerk. That evening, it's a funny line though. That evening, Parmenion encouraged Alexander to launch a surprise attack under the cover of darkness in order to negate the enemy's advantage. Alexander declined, expecting Darius to keep his army up all night in anticipation of that very thing. Alexander was so nonplussed by the impending engagement, he overslept the next morning, only to be awakened by his generals, who yanked his chain and claimed that the battle had already been won. And while that would occur, luck, strategy, equipment, and training would all be brought to bear. The fact is that Darius's troops were inexperienced, they were poorly trained, they were inadequately equipped. By comparison, Alexander's infantry fought in a phalanx, and they had heavy shields and 10-foot spears, while the spears of the Persian immortals, what a great term, the Persian immortals were 3 feet shorter, which didn't make them immortal. And their shields were designed for protecting royals from civilians and not soldiers from warriors. Alexander's troops had followed him through Macedon, through Corinth, through Thrace, through Thessalonica, and then Tyre and through Gaza. and they were battle tested. By comparison, Darius's deployed inferior Scythian chariots, which is why he removed every shrub from the battlefield. He also deployed the ancient world's version of a tank. Yep, with 15 Indian elephants. Both sides arranged their armies in traditional fashion. The battle commenced with the Macedonian infantry in a phalanx formation, marching into the center of the Persian line. Alexander's flanks were extended like wings, tilted back at 45-degree angles. Darius responded by attacking his enemy's left flank, which was under the command of the aforementioned Parmenion. But rather than reinforcing his general, Alexander moved in the opposite direction and left him just hanging out there toward his right flank, hoping to open up a gap in Darius's line as his infantry pursued him. Meanwhile, the Scythian chariots were being effectively countered by the discipline and experience of the Macedonian cavalry on Alexander's right. They prevailed by maneuvering their chariots away from the ground that had been previously prepared, rendering the Persian chariots ineffective. Then, as Darius countered Alexander's move, his cavalry routed the Greek horsemen in the vicinity of the Macedonian general. The more cavalry Alexander engaged, the less favorable the outcome. This is because the Scythian horses were better protected and the riders were accomplished horsemen. And yet somehow the Greek auxiliary forces drove the Persians out of their ranks. During their retreat, the Greeks pursued and slaughtered fleeing Persians. Now, all the while, Alexander allowed Darius to collapse his wings, a move that would have been fatal if the Macedonian general didn't simultaneously draw his entire army into a wedge formation, pointing the tip directly at the Persian king. In response, Darius fell back, his troops retreating with him. However, Alexander, learning that his left flank under Parmenion was encircled and was now on the verge of being destroyed, elected to save his army rather than strike Darius down. Upon returning to their encampment, the Greeks found Darius's troops attempting to rob them of provisions and valuables. This was fortuitous for Alexander because with Darius's soldiers distracted, and it evened the odds, allowing for the rescue of Parmenion's trapped soldiers. In other words, a little Muslim, we're going for the booty now, is how Alexander prevailed. Immediately thereafter, Alexander turned the tables and set off with his bodyguards in pursuit of Persian treasure rather than Darius himself. En route to Susa, they came upon the king's personal baggage, which included a bankroll of over 4,000 talents. Since a talent represents 26 kilograms of silver, each was worth approximately $25,000, valuing the captured treasury at $100 million. That was inconsequential to what later would be found, and therefore controlled. All of Persia and Babylon were now for the taking. Now, I have a sense that what comes next, immediately after leading an IPO and raising hundreds of millions of dollars for my growing business, I told a reporter, we are never more vulnerable than we are at the moment of our greatest success. And my expression was offered out of an assessment of history and a sober appraisal of my personal responsibility. I was aware that those who, like Alexander, are known for their extraordinary accomplishments there are many far better men and women pursuing a much more beneficial agenda who are just not as lucky. In business and in war, the combatants make hundreds of decisions each day, and only one needs to be wrong to have everything come crashing down. And we are never quite as circumspect or careful when so many are singing our praises? After Alexander had accomplished his goal of killing his white whale, then what? He tried debauchery and licentiousness. And apparently, he wasn't very good at either. He drank himself into a stupor. But even when sober, he demeaned his men by ordering them to worship him as a god.
Yep.
Believing that he was immortal and no longer subject to human constraints, he discovered that, well, neither were true. Now, surrounded by the swampy waters of Mesopotamia, where mosquitoes breed, he contracted malaria. It is something to which I am also familiar. His symptoms mimicked mine. The disease caused his internal cells to rupture. His fever rose, and the pain became debilitating over 2 weeks' time. It is an excruciating and miserable way to die, which he would do at 32 years of age in 323 BCE. Probably obvious that when I got malaria, I didn't die, but I certainly wanted to.
It'll make you want to die.
The pain is that intense.
It is.
Terrible.
God not only predicted as much, he asked a man who had experienced both of these impostors to share the results with you. The great, young, and stubborn crowned goat, seeking adventure, supremacy, and glory, was empowered, exalted, and enriched as he glorified himself and became exceptionally boastful, exceeding the greatest extent thought possible. By the way, Alexander is a prototype for the Toraless one, who is now Donald Trump. But when he was the strongest and when his empire was enormous, the great horn was broken, the memories of his body rupturing. Then 4 conspicuously appeared, rising up in its place, extending towards the 4 winds of the sky. So upon Alexander's death, which certainly sounds like it was of malaria, his top 4 generals, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Symmachus, and Cassander, divided his empire and ruled in his place. History played out exactly as God revealed. And since this prophecy was conveyed 200 years prior to these events playing out in the lives of the Babylonians, Persians, and Greeks, this presentation serves to affirm that we can rely upon those which were foretold to guide us into the future. So as we did in the midst of the previous revelation, out of the ashes of history long ago, we find ourselves confronted with our immediate future. The beast of the time of trouble will eventually emerge out of this story, as will his comrades. And from there, this influence will stretch southeast towards the promised land. Here's the next segment. It is from Daniel 8:9. It begins, "Then from one of them was withdrawn one horn, less significant, although perhaps the youngest, smallest, and lowliest. And a remnant, or the rest, grew, becoming greater towards the south, to the east, and toward the desirable and beautiful." This would be speaking of the land of Israel.
Yep.
Well, we will consider the many possibilities. The most obvious choice from the many, who was at least initially less significant early on, but grew in power over time, particularly as his influence spread to the south and east, including the promised land, would be Seleucus. He was initially he was the least prominent of those who rose to power and acclaim following Alexander's death. He was a secondary player as the commander of an infantry unit. He cast his lot initially under Perdiccas, who he later betrayed and assassinated during the Diadochi Wars in Egypt. For his treachery, Seleucus was appointed satrap of Babylon under the regency of Alexander's retarded brother, Antipater. Not up to the level of rival antagonists, Seleucus fled Babylon, only to return with Ptolemy support. And from that point, Seleucus became the most ruthless of Alexander's former generals, conquering a resurgence of Persian and Median empires, reclaiming Babylon as his in the process. And as a result, the Seleucid Empire and dynasty ruled over everything from Asia Minor in today's Turkey through Syria, and of course into Judea and east to Mesopotamia and today's Iraq and Iran.
The Seleucid Empire was huge. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, beyond the obvious choice, this situation is complicated because Alexander had no plans to die and did not discuss succession. Disagreements ensued between generals, and that put the empire into crisis. The main factions included Meleager, who supported Alexander's half-brother, Aridaeus, who, as I have mentioned, was mentally retarded, and Perdiccas, the leading cavalry commander who strategically championed Alexander's yet unborn son. A compromise ensued when the mentally incapacitated Aridaeus became co-regent under the name Philip III, alongside Alexander's infant, literally infant son. Since that was absurd, Perdiccas designated himself as the co-regent of the empire, and to keep pace in the army, Meleager became his second in command. However, Perdiccas had Meleager and the other general leaders who had opposed him initially murdered. Thereafter, the generals supporting Perdiccas were made satraps of the empire. This included Ptolemy, of course. He became the first Greek pharaoh of Egypt, which at times included Judea. Laomedon received and lost Syria, which included Phoenicia. Ptolos was the assigned the area of Cilicia. Pithon was afforded Media. Antigonus was given Phrygia, along with Lycia and Pamphylia. But he wanted more, of course. Asander received Caria. Also in the mix, Meander became the king of Lydia. There was sections given of Thrace and Leonatus, and he would rule over the Hellespont of Pharia. The Neoptolemus, as a general, was assigned Armenia. Macedonia and the rest of Greece became Antipater's prize. Taxilus and Porus shared portions of India, which didn't penetrate very far into the subcontinent. Alexander's father-in-law, Orestes, received Gardara. Sybaritus was given Arcosia, while Philip ruled Bactria. And on it goes in terms of dividing all of this conquered land into fiefdoms and kingdoms. While this is a word salad of names, it was nothing new, and wars evolved from it because no one was happy with what they had received and wanted everybody else's share. So eventually, Antipater's army, under the command of Craterus, entered Asia Minor, and adding to the intrigue, Ptolemy stole Alexander's body on the way back to Macedonia, and then joined the coalition. However, even with this being 4 against 1, the Confederates defeated Craterus at Hellespont, but all was not good and hate in war, because after winning, Perdiccas was murdered by his own generals, namely Python and Antignes and the aforementioned Seleucus, for having lost too many men and actually he lost them during a contested crossing of the Nile when invading Egypt. And the troops decided that we don't like you very much anymore. Ptolemy was therefore rewarded Perdiccas and his murderers because, well, Ptolemy wanted more land to control too and didn't like Perdiccas much either. And he did so by making Python and Aridaeus the co-regents, and later giving Seleucus Babylon, even though he would have to fight for it and to control it. Thereafter, a new agreement was forged with Antipater called this treaty, whereupon Antipater was made regent of the empire and moved to Macedon. And it just was this whole series of generals killing generals as kings sought to have larger kingdoms. And all of this was being set up for Roman control, as the Eastius Empire would capture what Alexander had fought to control. And thereafter, we find that Yahweh's world would be tread upon by Paul, Vespasian, Titus, Akiba, and Hadrian, and then Constantine, Theodosius, and Mohammed, all pointing to the arrival of the likes of Stalin and Hitler's to come, just one miserable individual after another, until we finally end up with one named Trump. So before we move on, I'd like to share a little more about Alexander, since he's a prototypical despot. Growing up, he never knew the loving embrace of a mother or a father. At an early age, the young boy was raised by Laniki and Leonidas, both strict disciplinarians. He was schooled in war by one of Philip's generals. At 13, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle, a relationship which continued into the age of 16. His boarding school was the Temple of Nymphs. His only reason Aristotle consented to such duty was because Philip agreed to rebuild the philosopher's hometown, which the king had razed previously, while also freeing those that the king had enslaved. So he's not doing this out of the kindness of his heart. Classmates at the time included Ptolemy and Cassander, Alexander's future generals. And while the young student loved Homer's Odyssey, he carried the Iliad with him throughout his conquests, as if he were reliving it. At 16, Alexander's formal education was concluded. His father was at war with Thrace, and he left his son in charge of Macedon as his regent. During Philip's absence, the heir apparent had the opportunity to prove his mettle. When the Thracians revolted, he successfully exiled them, colonializing their territory with the Greeks while founding the first of 7 cities named Alexandria. Thereafter, Philip sent the teenage Alexander off with his troops to quell revolts in southern Thrace, which was due to east of Macedon and thus north of the Bosphorus Straits toward the Black Sea. While initially successful, he was quickly recalled by Philip to subdue a farming community 30 miles west of Athens, and the Greeks there had the audacity to cultivate Apollo's sacred land near Delphi, and thus had to be punished for that. And while in pursuit, Alexander was met by an invasion into Macedonia, which he repulsed. We have a flashing light, Rich, if you could take care of this one here. In 338 BCE, Alexander was just 18. He joined his father on a march through Thermopylae, where they suppressed the Theban resistance. However, while en route to Athens, the Athenians voted to league with Thebes against Macedon. The battle for control of the Peloponnese commenced just 2 days later after a march from Athens, and Philip prevailed by feigning retreat, thereby breaking the Athenian lines as they rushed into the fray. In the ensuing chaos, the Athenians were routed, making the isolated Thebans easy prey. So every Greek city-state except Sparta thereby capitulated, acknowledging Philip as their king. And rather than fighting, Sparta negotiated a Hellenistic alliance in Corinth, whereby they agreed to name Philip hegemon. That's a term that we still use today, talking about nations.
Hegemon.
Yeah, hegemon, trying to impose their supremacy. And the stated purpose of the League of Corinth was to attack the Persian Empire. Their sights were set, but there were some glitches on the way to war. Back in Pella, Philip married Cleopatra. A child was of this. She was a child of the niece of General Attalus. Since she was a purebred noblewoman, even as Philip's seventh wife, her children's claim to the throne would supersede Alexander's. The historian Plutarch describes the sordid affair. At the wedding of Cleopatra, whom Philip fell in love with and married, she being much too young for him, her uncle Attalus in his drink desired that Macedonians should implore the gods to give them a lawful successor to the kingdom by his niece. This so inbred, irritated, and inflamed Alexander that following one of the cups, he threw one of the cups at the head of his oppressor and said, "You villain, what am I then? Nothing but a bastard." Alexander did not take this well. Then Philip, taking Attalus' part, new father-in-law, rose up and he would have run his son through, almost killed Alexander in his rage. But the wine or drink made his foot slip so that he fell down on the floor, at which Alexander reproachfully insulted his father standing over him. "See there," he said, "the man who makes preparations to pass out of Europe into Asia, overturning and passing from one seat to another. There you lie on the floor." So not as courageous as he is made out to be, the goat fled Macedon with his mother, dropping her off in Dodona, the capital of the Molossians. The kingdom along the Aegean Sea and northern Greece is mostly noted for its misfortune. A century and a half from this date, the vengeful Romans would enslave 150,000 Molossians in the process of annexing their land. But on this day, Alexander continued north to Ilythria, which wasn't the brightest move since he had fought against them the previous year. Ilythria was also Hellenistic, which made them unreliable, and therefore likely to be allied with fellow Greeks, as they were antagonistic towards their fellow Greeks. So at the time, this kingdom bordered the Adriatic Sea in the Balkans, stretching from present-day Albania to Croatia and including Montenegro, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. So without intervening conflict or conquest, the goat in Daniel's prophecy was now aged 20. Just 2 years after his strategic retreat, he scampered back into the fold and to his father in Macedonia. But all was not well. This was not Camelot. The Persian governor of Caria had just ordered his youngest daughter to Alexander's half-brother. And this favoritism caused Olympians to suspect that Philip was seeking to bypass her son once again. So she had Alexander propose to the blushing bride to take her for himself, hoping that he would marry her before his brother could consummate the affair. Getting wind of this, Philip squashed the wedding plan, simultaneously exiling all of Alexander's allies while scolding his son. They had a really lovely relationship. Sounds like my father and I. This turned out to be the wrong approach because his son didn't take criticism well, and this was his fourth wife, and she was not to be toyed with either. Immediately thereafter, Philip was assassinated by the captain of his bodyguards. It was not good to be king. And while attending another wedding, and while there is no contemporary account of the coup, the most rational explanation is that it was inspired by Olympias and Alexander. Olympias would be Alexander's mommy. The lone report of this intrigue was provided in a story by Diodotus 2 centuries thereafter, but I won't bore you with this sort of details. However, whatever the motivation or perpetrators, the dead men tell no tales. Moments after Philip's assassination, Alexander's men came upon and killed every rival, crucifying his corpse for public sympathy. So Alexander was proclaimed king by the aristocracy and the army. And then in all manner of Greek and later Russian affairs, he commenced his reign by eliminating all potential rivals, executing his next of kin. Olympias also participated, having Cleopatra and her daughter Europa burned alive. The Greeks were such nice people. The story goes on. We have passed our 2-hour mark of the family hour. Wookiee is absolutely out for the count. I think maybe this is a good place for us to stop, and we'll pick up the story of Alexander later. I like telling Alexander's story in this context because not only did Daniel introduce us to him and have a lot to say about him, but there's more to that story because Alexander really becomes this prototype for tyrant, for having no empathy, for will kill anyone, will lie about anything, will pretend to be gods. What will Trump do? He's going to claim to be a god. He'd sleep with his own mother. Yes. Well, and and Alexander was a sexual pervert as well. So it's just this is what you get. It's the psychopath playbook. Yeah, the best of men and women do not rise to the top. Nope. It's the worst. And it's just an interesting story. And one of the reasons also I like telling this story is that Alexander is always viewed as Alexander the Great. Yeah, and so great. More like Alexander the Annihilator. He was. I skipped over the stories of Tyre, but he was disgusting. He besieged them for no other reason than vengeance, and then he either killed or enslaved everybody. Yep. And there was no reason to even go there. Yes, Kirk.
Well, I was just saying, in this indicative where we're always saying that anyone who studies a little bit of history closely, you've got the king, you've got these evil people, they're run by the armies and the religious people giving their power or telling everybody that you should bow down to the king, and then everybody else is a slave. Yahweh was trying to save you from all this crap. I mean, and that's the way the world is. And it's no different today, really.
In the book of Samuel, the people all choose that they want to have a king like the Gentiles. King. Yeah, they want to do exactly what God told them not to do. Don't follow in the way of the Gentiles. They wanted a king that would lead them into wars, and they picked the most handsome, tallest man to be their king. And poor Samuel comes to Yahweh and he says, I have failed you. They have chosen a king rather than listening to me. And Yahweh says, no, they didn't reject you, Samuel. They rejected me. And then Yahweh says, they can have what they want, free will and all. But I want you to tell them the following things. And then he lists 12 things that are going to happen with a human government.
Yep.
And it was this very notion that the way a human government is going to work is this individual is going to bribe a group of people around him. And then that group of people is going to work as a cadre of supporters that keep everybody else impoverished. And then he's going to take your sons and he's going to take your crops and your possessions, and he's going to use them to go to war. And he's going to kill a great number of people, but the tools he is going to use are going to be the lives and the blood of your sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so God explains exactly how this is going to transpire, and it is the story of Alexander.
Yes.
It's the story of even King Saul. And King Saul, of course, becomes the prototype for Paul, Shaul Paul, of the Christian New Testament, both demon-possessed, both of which sought to write their words over on top of the Torah. And so this is God saying, you don't want to do this. This is a very bad idea. And Alexander is perfect in it. And it's when, you have the MAGAs, they're waving their Christian crosses and they're presenting Trump as their Messiah and showing him in all of these great poses. And he is obviously demon possessed. He's obviously a confabulator. He is obviously an egomaniac.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so destructive to everything, and they can't see it.
Nope.
One of the things that was interesting, and we'll leave it at this, that if you study the history of civilization, one thing you learn is that all civilizations were ruthless to their neighbors.
Yes.
They attacked them, they stole them, they robbed them, they enslaved them. The second is that there isn't any civilization that we're aware of that didn't have a caste system.
No.
Right.
And with that caste system, there's only one person that had freedom.
King.
And that was the
As long
king.
as they can hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, that whole, this myth that Greece introduced democracy to the world. There was no democracy in Greece. That Greece was the rule of kings. And the fact that there was some voting, the voting was all part of an oligarchy, and you had to be amongst the king's lords, the top generals, the leaders of his religious mythology, to have a vote. And even then, your vote was just to inform the king what you wanted, because the king didn't decide it. And in a caste system, like the Roman caste system is probably the most complicated. There's 20 different layers. But it's king or Caesar having all power, and other people that support the king either religiously, militarily, or economically.
Yep.
They have whatever degree of liberty the king is willing to give them until the king doesn't like them anymore, and then he kills them and steals everything they have.
That's how it works.
And then everybody below that is essentially one type of slave or another. And if you look at Rome and Athens at their peak, they were 90% slaves. 90% of the people that lived in Rome and Athens were slaves. So if that's a republic that you want to copy, and that is your model for democracy, well, you're out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about, because that's the reality of it. These were not nice people. These were not glorious civilizations. They were deadly. Yeah, they were exceedingly deadly.
People need to study history outside of what they're taught in schools.
Absolutely.
It is a very different history than what we are taught.
Yeah, it's amazing how we are indoctrinated in schools. I mean, Today, one of the great frustrations is seeing that the overwhelming preponderance of young people under the age of 30 are Marxists. They are
Yep.
exceeding socialistic liberals who have absolutely no concept
What
of
socialism has done.
what socialism does, and the fact that it deprives all people of prosperity and of freedom, and that it absolutely never works, and it is just a means to concentrate power, and it becomes ruthless, and all freedoms are deprived, and yet they're enamored with it, and they want to overturn the results of free enterprise. And yet free enterprise is the only system that actually creates wealth and has individual responsibility and promotes freedom and upward mobility. That's the beauty of that system. But in socialism, there is no such thing.
There's another study that shows anyone born after 1985 shows markedly decreased empathy and significant increases in narcissism. So it's not surprising.
Yeah, they're all told that they're entitled.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Right. They have no skills, no ability to produce anything of
no resilience,
of value, no grit, no character, no intelligence, no morality.
Nope.
We have an entire generation that cannot be reached with evidence and reason. I mean, the reason that Yahweh has to respond now, and this his timing, of course, was set because of your 6,000 Yah. But if we didn't deal with this opportunity now, if it were 10 years later, there'd be no one to reach.
Nope. We'd implode.
There'd be literally no one we could reach. You can't reach the young are completely outside of the reach of evidence and reason. The religious are outside of the reach of evidence and reason. The conspiratorials, the overly political are.
Exactly.
There just would not have been an audience of any consequence that we could have resonated with if this was postponed, is even 10 years.
We are devolving right before our own eyes.
We are.
No
There
kidding.
are. I look at the Marxists that are promoting the destruction of Israel. Palestine will be free. And
Sick.
the stupidity that comes out of their mouths as they embrace Islam. And I just realized they've ceased to be human.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any characteristics that I would associate with human
humanity. No.
Yeah, having
Agreed.
the morality or the conscience of a human. You consider pets. I mean, our dogs are more moral.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a hell of a lot nicer.
I know jaguars that are more moral than these
Yeah.
kids.
I know,
Just come on.
You get some criticism now and again when I say that there will be animals, certainly during this millennial celebration of the Shabbat. And and dogs are definitely going to be there because they are.
Wookie's counting on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That little punk, he's counting on it.
and if you realize that today they seem to be smarter, nicer, and more moral than most people.
Yeah, loyal,
Yeah.
faithful, good guys and girls.
Trust my dog's judgment over most people's.
Yes. Yeah, I would too. I mean, one of the reasons we moved to this island is to get away from it all because it was so oppressive, and you need to be away from it to do this job. I think, Rich, you found yourself in a much saner environment. We can just focus on doing this job.
Still a lot of work.
Yeah, lots.
Nicely done on the orchestration of the show. Show us your handsome mug there, Rich, as we say goodbye to one and all. There he is.
Yes, time to say goodnight, sweetheart.
Yep. So we appreciate all of everyone's contributions. We'll continue with this same theme on our next program. We will get eventually to that whole story of Numbers 13, 14, and 15, because I don't think it's ever been told correctly. And yes, we have let quite a teaser out, but I can tell you that Yahweh's vocabulary and his presentation of it, particularly as he explains the role of the bull, the ram, and the goat going forward, and what he's going to achieve from them, it is pure poetry. God told us everything we need to know. And it was in a place that I would have least thought to find it.
Yeah.
May I just say,
See, even
may I
bulls
just say
can
before you
learn.
close, I
Yes.
just am so thankful I know all you guys. I appreciate you every day.
What a wonderful time to be living in a wonderful place and to have this opportunity to serve Yahweh and to learn from him and to share what we learn. We couldn't be in a better place or time.
That is true.
So thank you all. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Look forward to speaking with one and all tomorrow. Good night.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.